Do you ever find yourself staring at a blank screen the night before a presentation thinking, where do I even start? Well, you're not alone. What I'm going to do in this video is explain how I prepare for a presentation from first idea to final delivery. Stop stressing about your presentations and make them absolutely fabulous. My name is Dr. Cara Bedzina. I'm an academic GP based in the United Kingdom, and this channel is dedicated to all things medical education. If your idea of a presentation is just create some slides and hope for the best, you are setting yourself up for a lot of unnecessary stress. So let me cover my 7-step process for getting ready for a presentation. So the first thing I do is block out some dedicated time before the presentation. Often there's a lot of worry. You're like, I've got this thing coming up. It's in several weeks' time. Find a space in your diary, block off a morning or afternoon, whatever, 3 hours, and be like, presentation preparation. What it means is that because you have that time blocked off, you won't worry when you're about to do it. All that will happen is you'll get to the day and you're like, oh, this is the time I blocked off for my presentation. So this is one of the top tips I give people, because what we can often do is allow work to take the time that it needs to be finished. But what do we know about Parkinson's law is that work fills the time that you attributed it. So if you give something a week, it takes a week. If you give something 3 hours, guess what? It takes 3 hours. But the idea is you're putting a boundary around the time on which you are working on the presentation. Now, it might take a little bit more additional time, it might take a little bit less, but it's important that you block off time prospectively in your diary to help your future self and say, this is the time I'm going to be tackling this, so I don't need to worry about it until then. The second thing I do in the lead up to the presentation is I capture ideas as they come. So I've blocked off my time, I know when I'm actually going to be working on it, but then the lead up to the presentation, I'll often have ideas about it just because I'll be thinking about it either on the walk to work or the way home back from work. The other thing is that I'll often have discussions with colleagues in work, or I'll be watching some sort of educational video and I'll think, that would be really good to use. And what I have is on my notes app on my iPhone, I have a spreadsheet that's open where I jot down ideas. So I allow myself the freedom and space to think about different things without actually committing to doing it. And what I do is I make sure I get it down somewhere so that I can refer back to it at a later date. This is the third thing I do, and it kind of relates to that sort of idea of inspiration, is I usually make some time to have a conversation with a colleague around the topic I'm going to be discussing. I'm an external processor, which means I like thinking aloud. Some people are internal processors, and that's okay. So the way I prepare for an oral presentation is I'll often book a meeting with one of my friends or one of my colleagues to talk about the topic. Now, sometimes it'll be directly on the topic where I'll say, listen, I've got this workshop coming up next week, or I've got this presentation next week. Do you have some time to cover this? Or it'll happen serendipitously where we're just talking about stuff and I'll discuss the things that I'm thinking about and kind of like tease it out. I especially love having a discussion with somebody who knows nothing about the subject matter, because I find I challenge myself to explain things in very simple terms. So block some time off and talk to people who you trust and whose opinion you value. That's how I get the cogs turning. So we've blocked off time, we've made sure that we're writing notes down, and usually I would have had a discussion with either one of my supervisors or one of my friends about what I was going to talk about. The fourth step, so this is when I'm actually getting to working on it. The way I usually do it is I will have the topic in front of me, my phone next to me. I'm being very visual here. My phone next to me. And what I'll do is I'll record a voice memo where I talk about the subject matter. So in particular, usually when I'm giving a presentation, it's on a topic that I've either spent a lot of time working on. So I'm a researcher, so I might be presenting around my research. It might be on subject matter that I have experience on, but more often than not, I'm asked to give a presentation on something that I know about. And this means that without planning, without going ahead with a fixed structure, I'll already have an idea about the topics I want to cover and the things I want to discuss. So what I'll do is basically just talk about it and record it on a voice memo. The caveat is that if you are doing a presentation on something you don't know something about, you need to add an extra step in there where actually you give yourself time to do a little bit more research to allow you to get to that space where you can just have a stream of consciousness. So what I'll do is I will then transcribe that voice memo and look at it, and from it I'll be able to tease out, okay, I think these are the 3 main points I want to cover, and suddenly my presentation will start to take shape. Sometimes I build the slides just off of that because I know completely about what the presentation is going to look like. Other times I'll record that, have a semi-structure, a draft, I'll start doing the slides, and it's through the process of making the slides that I actually see the whole picture come to fruition. And I think the important thing to recognize here is we're not talking about the technicalities of it, like tools that you can use to deliver a fantastic presentation. We're talking about the prep work that goes into it. So this is my process whereby I'll record it on a voice memo, transcribe it, and then do the slides and work together to formulate some sort of presentation. Once I've got my draft, what number are we on now? The 5th thing I do is I practice and I record a run through. So if I'm using Canva, Canva has a feature whereby you can record your presentation. So what I'll typically do is run through it to make sure that I'm keeping to time. So a lot of job interview presentations are 5 minutes long. A lot of conference presentations are usually about 10 to 15 minutes long. And what I'll do is practice it to see how I do from a time point of view. But importantly, by recording it, it gives me the opportunity to step away from it, take a break, look at it, and think about how I could improve it. And finally, my 6th thing is I make sure that I've got time to get feedback from some people. And this is something I would encourage you to think about very, very, very carefully. So I have heard TEDx speakers talk about the fact that because they're delivering it on like a world stage, they'll go to different venues and they'll practice their TED talk in front of an audience that they've never met before in order to get feedback. And that is fantastic. I think if you're doing a presentation on that level, that's definitely necessary. If you're doing more low-key stuff like at national conferences or maybe a job interview, I don't think your feedback journey needs to go that far. So typically what I will do is I will go and send the video to somebody I trust. And the reason why I think it's really important that you give it to somebody that you trust is because feedback is something very precious. And a lot of people do not know how to give feedback. And a lot of people don't understand that feedback is about what the learner needs, what the person needs. So I'll tell you that once, I never forgot this, when I was preparing for a PhD presentation, which was the one I got, by the way, I got told that I talk too slow when I'm thinking for Glaswegian people. And I remember thinking that isn't helpful at all. And if anything, it just knocked my confidence. There was this idea that actually I'm not the right person for this job. And I found it really difficult and upsetting. And I needed to reflect on that and recognize that actually that has nothing to do with me, but everything to do about the person delivering the feedback. Because that type of feedback wasn't helpful. I've done a lot of training and changing my voice and intonation and changing the speed to create attention. And so making that statement just about who I wasn't actually critical. It didn't actually help me think about how I could do things different. So since then, I've been very careful about who I ask feedback from, depending on the situation. I will usually go to my husband, who is also a medic and who I trust completely with keeping me right when it comes to how I show up in particular settings. Sometimes I'll send it to my best friend, and sometimes I'll send it to my supervisor. But the idea is you want to share it with somebody who will be able to tell you about the things that you did well, and importantly, encourage you, but also give you the opportunity to grow. So usually from this discussion, there'll be 1 or 2 things that we could focus on or do things differently. So my final step in the process is to get feedback from people you care about. And the 7th thing is practice until you're in the sweet spot. So if I've got a 5-minute presentation, I will practice a lot. Basically, because I don't want to even think about it. 5 minutes is very short. You want to be you want to be really fast. So I'll keep practicing it over and over again until I can say it verbatim without any issues. Whereas a 15-minute presentation or longer, I give myself a lot more leeway. And that is a space where I think if you practice too much, it might kill the natural conversation element that you need to create a really engaging presentation. So those are my 7 steps to preparing for a presentation. Number 1, block out dedicated time for it. Don't be freaking out about when you're hoping to get it done. Make sure you've got it blocked off. And that's that. 2, capture the ideas as they come. Make sure you're recording them somehow. 3, phone a friend, talk to someone you trust about what you want to discuss. And this works for me. 4, record a voice memo draft. So I'll record it and transcribe it and design slides. 5, make sure you practice and get a run through. 6, get feedback from the right people. 7, practice until you're in the sweet spot. So that's how I get ready for a presentation. I have 1 year actually where I was interviewing for fellowship. So I had an interview for an academic fellowship, which I got, a head of comm skills, which I got, and then my PhD interview, which I got. So I did about 3 interviews within the span of 4 or 5 months. And this was the technique I used to prepare for all the presentations that I had to deliver. I think a lot of people don't realize that it doesn't take that much, but it does take intention to create a really great presentation. Good luck with your presentations moving forward. If you have any ideas of anything else you want to talk about, pop it in the comments below. Otherwise, you can check out one of my other MedEd videos here. And if you're interested in more MedEd content, be sure to subscribe. Ciao! That's me. Did 2 videos in a day this time after a long day at work. It's hard doing this stuff out of hours, let me tell you.